Welcome back to another episode of Woods and Stuff. Here we have Collinsonia canadensis, or citronella horse balm. It's in the mint family, and these are what's left of little yellow flowers. And this is a pretty uncommon mint family. It's like a forb. Leaves smell good like citronella, and it blooms in late summer with its little yellow flowers. Collinsonia canadensis. It likes the rich forest. An Acer saccharum, or a sugar maple. They like the richer, kind of slopier areas, and you don't really find them in acidic forests. Present Euonymus elatus, the invasive burning bush from Home Depot, and it takes over these kind of rich forests. Here, there's another one there. There's a bunch over through there. Derna benzoin, more common in the rich lowlands. Little yellow flowers in the early spring, and then kind of yellowish foliage in the fall with red berries. Great for the spice bush swallowtail butterfly. Present in spiky Berberis sunburgii, this annoying invasive. Another Home Depot plant, and it forms these dense thickets in these lowlands. But they do protect some sensitive plants from being eaten by deer and rabbits. Present is the invasive Rosa multiflora, or the multiflora rose. It's another prickly bastard that takes over these woodlands. Another invasive. An ash, or ash tree, Fraxinus, and this one has been killed by the emerald ash borer, and that's why it's dead. So a lot of the ashes are just going. They're not going to be a tree, or not going to be common anymore. And let's see if you can see the telltale. Yep, perfectly circled boreholes where they climbed out, or where sapsuckers or other insect-eating birds drilled into the tree to get the little larva, and then they kill it. The insects basically eat the top layer, the green layer of the phylum of the tree. And they girdle it, and then it dies, which is sad because they're really good host plants. And I wouldn't say they're a keystone species, but they're definitely a species that supports a lot of wildlife. So it's sad to see them go like this. We have Actea racemosa, or doll's eyes. These are only common in the richest forests in the region. And it's in a buttercup family, has little white flowers in May. Like a little tuft of white flowers. And then it's just kind of like this 4B ground cover thing for the rest of the year. And then these are usually these bright white berries with black centers that look like little eyeballs. Floriadendron tulipifera, a common tree in rich woodlands, especially on slopes, and can form big colonies. It's a magnolia. And they're huge. They're one of the biggest trees in these eastern forests. And they like the rich areas. Little, big yellow flowers on them. And then you can see all their petals when they fall to the ground. And here's the seeds. So this little guy becomes a big ass tree. These things can get hundreds of feet tall. Maybe not hundreds, but like I think up to 200. They're huge trees and they're wonderful. Plant in the carrot family, also known as osmoriza, or the sweet anise, or anise root. Little carrot family. They smell pretty good. These actually taste delicious. This little carrot family blooms in June or July with these umbels of white flowers. And then for the rest of the year, it's just kind of like this kind of 4B ground cover thing. Another common plant in very rich forests, and very rare, if not absent, in a lot of the acidic forests out in Rhode Island and eastern Connecticut. We have a nice Betula lenta, or the black/sweet birch. This one's pretty big. Common in pretty much all sorts of woodlands, especially in shady areas that are relatively mesic. Mesic meaning moist, or moister, not quite wet. I have not seen them in swamps. About Acer rubrum, another common component of these slopey forests. These can both survive on the slopes. I've seen sometimes up in the uplands, but most of the time they're down in the swamps. On this maple is Fruliana eborensis, or New York scalewort. It's a little liverwort. And you can pretty much find it on every tree. They're very common. Little tiny liverwort. You can't really see them very well. It's better on this one. Here, we get that 10 zoom. Look at that, boom. That's gorgeous, huh? They flush red in the winter, and then they're more green during the summer. Tasuga canadensis, or the eastern hemlock, a little shade one, growing along this little creek. And there is larger forest of these around here, but the forest of them are becoming rarer and rarer, especially on the coast, due to the Hemlock woolly adelgid, which is a scale insect that destroys these. I said that many times, but I'm gonna say it every time I see these. Along the slopes of this little brook, we got one of the most common wildflowers in New England, which is Yerbia divoritica, or the whitewood aster. These can form massive just colonies, big ground covers. White flowers in September and August. Even into October. They're pretty much in every single forest. But typically along the lowlands, or in the lowlands, along creeks, or in gaps and rocks. Anywhere there is a little bit of moisture, they'll grow. But they like the shady areas. You don't really find them in the sun. You can find them on the north slopes of some highways. Wonderful garden plant too. These things spread like crazy and they make a great weed block and ground cover. We have a little Marcescent Carpinus carolinea right here, musclewood, little birch family shade tree, also called ironwood or blue beech, which is a stupid name. And they're common in wet, kind of, I wouldn't say rich, because I can find them out in Connecticut or eastern Connecticut and throughout Rhode Island, but they like the moister areas, moist and shady. Great, wonderful shade tree. Betula papyrifera, or the paper birch. These are somewhat uncommon in Rhode Island, or very uncommon in Rhode Island. More common the more north you go and the more hilly you get. This one's growing on a shady slope and they need full sun. So with time this one will eventually die. I've seen a lot of them out in Rhode Island. They're like a quarter this size and they end up dying pretty fast. But this is a good sized one right here. Look at that. Nice big one. We also got a few others. You can see the white bark really sticking out in the distance, and they love these slopes. They love the uplands. Look at those. We got some big mushrooms. We're gonna go check those out. Here's our weird polypore. I don't know what it is yet, but it's freaking awesome. Look at the underside of that. It's beautiful. And then we got Tremite. Tremite is a type of turkey tail. Some other scale, I don't know. It's a fungi, and then another weird fungi up on this dead paper birch, and they're all absolutely covering. Look how many there are. It's awesome. So present is the beautiful maple leaf viburnum. Here's berries. These are umbels of white flowers in the spring. Beautiful foliage that looks like a maple. And this one's absolutely loaded with berries. Look how many there are. Great food for birds. And it's a great shade plant for gardens and whatnot. Absolutely gorgeous. One of my favorites. This one's about 5 feet tall. I have a lichen in the Parmeliaceae. I don't know the exact genus or species, but it's a Parmelia type lichen with those little branches, and it's kind of bluish color. Beautiful. Going on the slope. It's the east facing slope of Great Hill. And that's where I'm going, up there. So I got a ways to go. I think it's an elm. I'm not sure what kind of elm, but I know it's an elm because it's different. I can't really tell you why it's an elm. Maybe the leaf shape is elm-like. The buds are elm-like. I mean, it's not a carpinus. It's not a beech. It's definitely something different, so I'm gonna guess it's an elm. Beautiful Quercus rubra. Look at this thing. This thing's a giant. Good, almost 4 feet around. It's a big boy, I reckon I tell you. We have Eulata, maybe Eulata crispa, a little tiny moss that grows on rocks and sometimes trees. This is a teeny tiny thing. Look at that. Teeny tiny and cute. Eulata crispa. Heading up the rocky slope here. We got maples and beeches and oaks and slipperiness and steepness. Probably goes up 100 feet from down there, and then further down it went up another 100 feet, which ain't much, but it's pretty damn steep. It's about 20 degrees out. One of the coldest days of the winter so far, if not the coldest day of the winter. Last night it got down to like 10, which is definitely the coldest it's been. So I'll show you what's up top when I get up there. The slope here, we got witch hazel, or Hamalinus virginiana. Yellow flowers in October and November. And these little seed capsules that feed birds and whatnot. It's a cool plant. One of the last shrubs to bloom, the last shrub to bloom. You know what I mean, the last shrub to bloom? It's the last shrub to bloom in this area. Like, for the season, more or less. Oh, look, Umbilicaria mammulata. Right there. Boom. So here we have Rubus algensis, or the Allegheny blackberry. And we have a Calmia latifolia, or the mountain laurel. And this is, it's sporadic here and there. You can find it on slopes a lot. More in pasture lands and sometimes in open lowlands. A Calmia, you typically find it in drier locations, like up on this hill. In Rhode Island, it forms entire dense thickets. Whereas here, it's sporadic. But I'm sure there's dense thickets the higher up you get, and maybe on the west slopes where it's drier. We have rhododendron paramyclinoides or something like that. It's a little pinkster azalea, little pink flowers in the early spring, like May. It's an uncommon rhododendron. I mean, it's here and there. It's definitely not extraordinarily rare like some orchids are, but it's definitely one that you don't see every day. And these will all become little flowers in the future. And then here's a remnant flower. That's like the capsule. I'd love to grow these sometimes. They make one. Oh, it's shattered. It's still there. Beautiful. Most common polypores in this region. I find it everywhere, all the time. It's as common as a red oak. It is Asterium complicatum. I think that's how it's spelled, but it's the crowded parchment. Asterium. Very common, very beautiful, very nice. We have Smilex glauca. Not rare, but relatively uncommon. Not as common as Smilex rotundifolia. And it's a little spiky guy. He's a little twining spiky guy. Beautiful. I like their kind of bluish looks to them. I like the undersides especially, with that nice little red venation there. Is a small Smilex rotundifolia. This one's probably was all green, but then the real frost hit the last few weeks, so it's starting to really senesce and turn brown. The leaves will fall off. Vaccinium angustifolium, low bush blueberry, growing at the base of this little oak in this kind of heathy upland. Here in the uplands, we're at this glade, this rocky outcrop overlooking the Connecticut River Valley. We have Pinus rajata, which is common in these uplands. We also have species of little bluestem right there. It's a type of sedge or some other grass. Oh, slippery. Don't want to die, but you can see the amount of development in this area. As you get closer to Hartford, the development gets kind of crazy. You can see that clearing over there. That was either just logged. That might even be a power line easement. But it looks new, because remember I hiked back here. Oh yeah, that's new. That's a new fucking clearing. Wonder what that is. But anyways, you can see all the pasture lands down there. You can see all the neighborhoods. Let me just get to a little gap right here. Right there is the Connecticut River. Looking very nice. My uncle lives down there. That's kind of cool. I want to explore those mountains next. That's where I might go tomorrow. Because I know there's some good peaks. And that's the other side of the Connecticut River. Maybe that's further away than I think it is. No, it can't be. Alright, I don't know. But I think those are all basalt peaks over there. But I want to go to them because they look awesome. We have the non-native Dianthus armeria. It's not exactly invasive. It has really cute little pink speckled flowers. It's a type of carnation. And they're kind of nice, I gotta say. They're kind of nice, even though they're not native. Dianthus armeria. These are little seed capsules of them. Got the good old Quercus ilicifolia, the bare oak, shrub oak, growing in the glades. They like to be associated with pitch pines, but you can find them in sandy areas or just generally dry, rocky woods. Fucking thing. That thing's awesome. It's a weird lichen. I don't know. I gotta do my research. Let's see. I'm gonna do some research. Called Xanthoparmelia obscura. That one's a difficult one to try to pronounce and remember. Xanthoparmelia conspira. Speckled rock shield. Look at that. That thing's awesome. Xanthoparmelia conspira. There you go. I will remember that one. Xanthoparmelia conspira. You say it enough times, you'll remember, and then you'll mispronounce it for the rest of your life because you didn't learn from the experts. Here we have a tree in the genus Caria, a type of hickory, and I want to say Caria tomatosa because it's kind of like the stems are kind of fuzzy, and I have seen this one in uplands, the tomatosa one. So my guess is that this is a type of hickory that only grows in uplands. So it's got to be the tomatosa, which means kind of hairy. And the hairs, you can kind of guess what kind of habitat it's in. If it's slightly hairy, it's in more of a dry habitat. It's trying to keep water. So that's my thing. I think it's a Caria tomatosa, and I typically see these in rocky uplands that, and I see them in a lot of rocky uplands. They're not like a dominant tree, but they do sometimes get a little bit big. There's a spot of them along a river where I live, the Thames River. Look at this. I don't know what this is, another type of oak. But I love this. This is what you would call the oak uplands, because it's just a variety of different oaks. And then, you'll get your occasional low bush blueberry here and there. But the majority of the understory is in the genus Quercus. It's an oak upland. That's what it is. An oak upland? I'd say oak glade land because it's at the top of this little peak along a ridge that is pure rocky. So it's an oak glade land. You have oak glade land, you got oak heathland. You got oak laurel land, which sometimes grows in glades. You got oak kind of grassland. You got chestnut oak heathland. And this is a mix of chestnut oak heathland and just oak upland. I've only seen oak upland a few times, and they're more common the more you get west. I think it's due to humidity or rain or dryness, one of those things. Mystery fungus. This one's going on iNaturalist. It's on a maple, if that helps. Beautiful Tremites. Look at this thing. That thing's awesome. Beautiful. Eye-catching. I like the contrast. It's like a little piece of art. Beautiful. Look at that. Isn't that something? That's sick. Like, I would be obsessed with that if that was in my garden. Like, I would keep looking at it, Look at that thing. A little, I'm gonna say a Tremites. It's beautiful, though. Continuous path rush. You always gotta know where path rush is, because it's very common. I love path rush. I have a native rose. It's in the genus Rosa as well. It might be Rosa Carolinea, or the Carolina rose, growing in this oak glade land. We also got path rush, and there's also like a weird comandra over there. I think it's a comandra. I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure this is a comandra. It's a little white flowered plant. Sort of uncommon, but I can't tell you more about it because I'm not 100% sure. Oh, look, we got a little Myanthemum canadens. I can tell you all about that. It's a little mayflower. And what else we got? Over here we got probably panicled hawkweed, but it's getting a little late to tell. And I want to say it's panicled hawkweed, but earlier in the season you could tell, but now I don't trust. I don't really post ones that get this far. But these you can still kind of tell. Until they get totally destroyed, then no. Furnace serotina, or the black cherry. That's a old trunk of one. There's a few of them up here. But they can't really tolerate deep shade, because that's kind of, or they can't really tolerate part shade. And that's kind of what this forest is becoming. Falopia scandens, or climbing hemp vine. I love Falopia. I think it's in the Polygonaceae, the knotweeds. I'm pretty sure it is. It might actually be in the buckwheat family. I think it is the buckwheat family. Oh, the hickory back there might actually be a shagbark hickory, if it focuses. This is a big shagbark here, and the buds, I want to say, are the same. They're definitely the same. So the hickory I saw back there is a shagbark. That's awesome. I love shagbarks. The other species of hickory is also up here. See, that's a shagbark. This is one's the same age. This one's probably a bitternut or tomatosa. I don't know. I know it's one of a few, because there's a few hickories that kind of look like this, but the shagbark looks like a shagbark. You know what I'm saying? Some Dendrolycopodium obscurums, or flat-branched club moss. Little lycopods growing up in the uplands here. Lysomachia or Lysymmetra quadrifolia. Little yellow flowers in June. In their whorled, or it's whorled loosestrife, or quadrifolia. Beautiful. I love these. One of my favorites. Agus virginiana, or the beech drops, growing on this north slope with a few American beeches. The Fagus grandifolia. Oh look, terrible. Thank you for telling us all about S2 plus SMU. They're probably broken up by now. The way you can tell witch hazels, or Hamelinus virginianus, from just walking by without the leaves in the woods, is they appear to have kind of pinkish bark. Look at them. Kind of pinkish. You see that? Let's see. Boom. See? It has this kind of light pinkish red color, especially against the background of snow and like an oak tree, for example, which is more gray. Like this one. More gray, striated. You can tell birch. Just pure, kind of almost shiny, the sweet birch is, but not quite. We have an Australia virginiana, or I think it's Australia. This is a hophorn beam, but it's dead. A little birch in the genus Corylus cornuta. I think it's Corylus. I know it's Corylus. I don't know if it's cornuta. It could also be Americana. They're kind of hard to tell apart. Like, one has kind of fuzzy stems, but I'm starting to notice that like they all kind of have fuzzy stems, and they might be hybridizing. But you can't. How you really tell is by the size of the fruits. The flowers, or the male and the female, they look pretty similar between all of them. Like, there might be a slight difference, but what's the most obvious difference is the shape of the leaves and the shape of the seed. The birch maize polypore. I forget the exact genus name, but it's the birch maize because it's grown on this little dead black birch, and that's the top. It's a cool one. Little Betula algensis, or the yellow birch. You can tell because it's shininess and it's kind of peeliness, and it's almost more yellow appearance. So this is what will happen to a lot of our woolly adelgid hemlocks up on the slopes. When a high wind comes, they're kind of popsicled, and since they don't lose their leaves in the winter, they sway more. You know, the wind's able to push that more than, like, say, that birch there. So what happens is, with enough wind, they topple over because they can't sustain that kind of like high pressure wind, you know, because they used to be more triangular. They used to be more like a post that all kind of moved together and bend. Whereas when the high wind came, it just kind of broke the top. And the reason why they're not a full, you know, hemlock tree is because the adelgid has killed all the branches that are in the shade. You can see it happening to the small one here. So when Calmia latifolia gets cold stressed, its leaves kind of curl up and they pretty much lose all their water, and some of them even just freeze. This one in particular is also covered in freezing rain, so they're not very filled with water, so I bet you they're just absolutely filled with alkaloids that just deter deer from eating them because they're just so bitter and nasty. That's why mountain laurels can survive in the shade. But deer do occasionally, when, you know, the going gets real tough, they will occasionally browse on these. But when there's other things around, like birch saplings or oak saplings or herbaceous cover or anything that's not mountain laurel, they pretty much, it's free grazing. Unless it's barberry, which they want to avoid because it's so spiky. This tree, we got a cool Tremites. No, it's not Tremites. It's definitely a type of No, Tremites is a turkey tail, so this is, I want to say, a type of Tremites. It could be the false turkey tail. I don't know, but they're wicked cool and they're awesome. Look how beautiful. Oh, come on, focus. Boom. Look at that. Beautiful colors. And then this is what the bottoms of them look like. And they just form such a different structure when they're facing straight down. Beautiful bark on this Quercus montana, or the chestnut oak. They call it the chestnut oak because its leaves are similar to a chestnut oak, or a chestnut tree, sorry. But the chestnut tree is more or less extinct. Beautiful. Probably 100 years old or more. One of my favorite trees. Locelia pustulata, or the blistered navel lichen. So cool. Calmia angustifolia, or the sheep laurel. Pink flowers in May. It kind of looks like mountain laurel, but they're like in this kind of ball. Flat pink flowers. Calmia angustifolia. We have Fruliana, or the scalewort, and Ulata, which is that little moss. And that's how almost every tree in this beech forest is. All those spots you see is patches of Ulata and Fruliana. So cool. And, we're on the western slopes of a mixed deciduous forest dominated by beech with minor components of oak, hickory, birch, and maple. And multiple different species of birch. Like here we got sweet birch, we have gray birch or paper birch, and we have yellow birch, all in like the same spot. You know, I take that back. That is also a gray birch, but it looked kind of yellow because it's the way it's scarred. But I'm sure there's yellow birch just downslope. Beautiful violet-toothed polypore. You can see the purple teeth on it. It's a polypore, one of my favorites. Absolutely beautiful. Crazy thing. Look at that. Another fungi. You'll find it on iNaturalist. Deer bedding spot. This is where they hung out. Probably, maybe not last night. Maybe last night. Who knows? You can see it's a chestnut oak forest with all the chestnut oak leaves. That's cool. It could be little areas where they kind of dug and then ate stuff. Could be either or. We're in a birch grapeland. This is quite the common habitat in open woods, where it's just a bunch of small grapevines with birch trees being the dominant tree in the area. And you know, of course, you got other mixes like oak or red maple, but it's a lot of black birch and grape climbing up the black birch, and a small tulip. So it's like a mixed rich forest. It's a cool spot. You can also find the same habitat in frickin' Tennessee and North Carolina. A young tulip tree, and this is what its bark looks like. And at this age, it's probably only like 30 years old, and it's already flowering and producing tons of seed. That's really cool to see. It's a box turtle shell. That's awesome. I think someone might have stuck it on this. It's cool. Tropa hypopodes. It's pretty rare, but it's in almost every preserve I go to. Except it's just like, there might be one. But it's beautiful. It's another little parasitic plant. Here we have a American beech that's dying from beech bark disease. So you get these little insects that basically drill little holes, and then they basically suck the sap, and then they bring in a parasitic fungus that just shreds the living layer of the beech, slowly killing it and mottling its bark. And it's also pretty dead, and it's like snapping and whatnot. So it's a little freaky to be by, I guess. It's not doing good. Poor beech. Here we're at a little spring. The water's coming from pretty much down to the ground. And it's melting the snow around it, and it's not freezing. So this is at least, it's probably like 50 degrees. Maybe not 50, maybe like 40 or so. But it's much warmer than the surrounding air. A little warm pocket. And in the summer, it's a little cold pocket. It's cool stuff. I'd say this area is nearly old growth. So almost all the trees here are at least a foot around. And there's a few of them that are 2.5 to 3 feet. Maybe not old growth, maybe I'd say 120. Maybe to 150-year-old forest. Cool stuff. Mixed deciduous, oaks, hickories, birches, tulip trees, maples. On a western slope. The invasive Celestris orbicalis, or the Asiatic bittersweet, choking out and killing this ash tree here. The ash tree was actually likely already dead due to emerald ash borer, so it's just climbed up and now it's just seeding like crazy and getting everywhere. But there's also barberry down here. There's also grapevine. This even looks like a Japanese maple. But it might not be. Actually, no, this is even cooler than the Japanese maple. It's a freaking American dogwood. The Florida. Cornus Florida. That's awesome. Allium trichocum, or ramps. It's a relatively uncommon onion type plant. And the leaves are tasty, and you can also eat the bulb, but I don't recommend eating them because they're starting to kind of dwindle because over harvesting. And they're a beautiful plant. You just appreciate them. A lot of people dig them up. Don't dig them up. Just take a leaf. And take one leaf from like a population. But also it's just like, maybe just leave it alone. Because we got plenty of farms that sell normal onion things. Leave these guys alone, you know? They don't deserve to be picked. They're dwindling. Unless you're going to pick... what I would do is I'd get the plant and then I would propagate it. Not just fucking pick it and eat it. I'd make more, so you don't have to go in the woods and pick it and eat it. You basically farm it. But what do I know? What do I know? It's cool to find. That means it's a rich forest. Cool fungi. This one will be on iNaturalist. Look at it. That thing's awesome. Growing on this dead log. Probably an oak. So cool. So distinct. Thudium delicatum. Delicate fern moss. Looking beautiful with a little snow cap in this creek. Lymphocarpus foetitis, or the skunk cabbage, fixing to open up and flower. A few more weeks for that one. Maybe 2 or 3. Depends. They're all throughout here. Hey, maybe even some of them have already opened up or have been kind of nibbed by deer. Yeah, I think these ones have been nibbed by deer. Or they could just be early openers. Cool stuff. Skunk cabbage is blooming. Kind of getting nibbed by deer, but it's blooming for sure. It's the earliest I've ever seen it bloom. This pond. Here's some nice Cleftronifolia. Grapevines and whatnot. Cool stuff. Nice Thudium delicatum. And right next to it, that little fuzzy guy, that's a Leucobirum. And then over here, we got another weird mystery one. Yellow yarn moss, maybe? I don't know, but it's definitely not Thudium. That's the Thudium right there. That's something different. And then we got Polypodium virginianum for the rock polypody. And that's among a oak laurel or oak kalmia woodland. The talus slope, a slope filled with small rocks. And what's covering it is mostly just rock polypody. And then you occasionally get some low bush blueberry, occasional witch hazels and laurels and black birches. Here's the pond I was just by. Georepens for the trailing arbutus. Nice to see these. These are another kind of uncommon one, but if you look in the right habitat, such as the sides of trails and dry oak laurel uplands, especially in west and south slopes, you'll find them. White flowers that smell amazing in the early spring, one of the first spring wildflowers to bloom, and it's in the blueberry family, and technically considered a shrub. Solidago bicolor has figured out how to bloom in the fucking winter. Look at this thing. Still green and happy. I mean, maybe the seeds are developed, maybe they won't, but it's still very interesting to see this thing still green and producing in mid-January of all times. I mean, the leaves are probably on their way out, but the stem is still good. It's still alive, that's for sure. And it has a basal rosette. It's so cool. Winter blooming. Pretty patch of Monotropa uniflora, or Indian pipes, the parasitic plant in the blueberry family. Beautiful. Quartz ensconced in this bedrock. That's awesome. And I'm not sure what the bedrock is. Let me look that up. The bedrock is quartzite, so this is a big quartz outcrop. That's cool. Somewhere to Lantern Hill and Ledged.